welcome. Let's see. I think we have people joining us, so we'll give folks just a couple minutes to get in and get settled. While we're waiting, feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. Let's see, you're welcome to share your name, pronouns, what organization you're with, and I always like to throw an extra thing out there. So maybe share one way that you're reducing your waste, given today's topic. If you feel so inclined, you can do that in the chat box there at the bottom. Let's see. I know I'm trying to use shampoo bars, which is like a new thing, and I'm having trouble finding a good one. So if any of you people who are into waste out there have any good tips for shampoo bars, let me know. We'll give people just a couple more minutes to get in before we get started. I'm very excited about today's webinar. We've had a whole week about, well, we've had years of our Hard to Recycle station, which we'll go into a little more, and then we had a Hard to Recycle event on Tuesday, which was a really good time. Excited to have the station open again, so all good things. Ooh, oh, all right, I see in the chat. So Allison using a cobbler instead of buying new shoes. I love that. That's a great idea. Dehydrated laundry detergent sheets. That's awesome. Teaching kids, Chris, that's great. I love that. So important to do. That next generation, got to get them into it, right? All right. So I think we will go ahead and get started. Yeah, can everyone see my screen with the TerraCycle logo on it, or with the, okay, cool. Normally there's a green bar around it and I don't see it, so made me panic for a second, but we'll go ahead and get going. So welcome everyone. My name is Mariah Schell. With me today is also Danny Orth on our team, here from our events team to make sure things go smoothly. I work as the Director of Tenant Services at the Alliance Center, and here we exist to bring people together to solve systemic problems, especially around climate change. A big part of the way that we do that is by connecting different networks, so including our tenant community and then our new membership program. So since it is new, I wanted to do a quick plug for our membership program. The intention is to help connect folks with other members and with our existing tenant community to build a better, stronger network of leaders and innovators. Anyone can become a member, whether sustainability is just something you're passionate about in your personal life or whether it's something you work on professionally. Everyone is welcome. We have tiers for students, individuals, and even for organizations of different sizes. As a member, you get connected to our exclusive social media channels, newsletters, and discounts to all sorts of events that we put on each month, just like this one. Membership is a really great option if you want to get involved but prefer to stay remote for now. Or if you're interested in getting out of the house and working around people again, we also have some co-working options where you'd be able to work at a desk at the Alliance Center, either a day or a few times a month. There's lots of options there too. So if you're interested, you can find more details at the link that we'll drop in the chat box, or feel free to reach out to me directly. Membership starts at just $25 a month, and co-working starts at $35 a day. So definitely check us out. Happy to answer any questions. As we get started, just a few housekeeping items. We'll hear from Chris and Allison for a bit before opening up the conversation to everybody else. So when we do open it up for Q&A, feel free to come off mute if you want to ask your question to our speakers, or you can share your questions in the chat box and we'll make sure that they get read. You're welcome to adjust the view from the upper right-hand corner where it says view. That might help depending on your situation. There's some options there for you. And this session will be recorded so we can send it out to folks who can rewatch it again and again and again, or for people who weren't able to make it today. So I'm very excited to introduce our speakers today. Chris Bowyer is the Alliance Center's Director of Building Operations, a colleague of ours, and he is responsible for the strategic development and day-to-day operations of the building systems. He serves as lead on the Living Laboratory program and has overseen the building's many LEED certifications, well health safety rating, and many other significant projects. Chris is an active member of the local U.S. Green Building Council, local advisory board, and a lead APO&M, which is a little bit of alphabet soup, but it's impressive, I'm sure. In 2020, he was selected as an Energize Denver Individual Leadership Award member, winner, and we're so happy to have him on our team. We'll also be hearing today from Allison Reser. She is joining us today from New York City. As project manager of retail marketing for TerraCycle, she executes best-in-class shopper marketing programs for TerraCycle's brand partners. Allison is originally from Denver, and from 2016 to 2018, she worked here at the Alliance Center as our tenant and visitor services coordinator. So it's great to see her again. Without further ado, I will hand it over to Chris. Chris, go ahead and take it away.
Yeah, let me see if those slides are going to move for us. Thank you, Mariah. Go away chat, and let's move the slides. There we go. Thank you, Mariah, for the introduction. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. And thank you, obviously, Allison, for taking the most of the weight for this presentation. I just get to introduce the Alliance Center a little bit more about what we do and kind of go from there. So it's great to have someone that literally used to sit right beside me to present with, even though now she's, gosh, 2,000 miles away now. So I'm glad to have you. For those that aren't familiar with the Alliance Center, we do have a rather lengthy history. The building is actually the one that's right here, assuming that you can see my mouse. It's there's a little two-story building with a white second floor, and the one directly to the left of it is our building. So it has been around for quite a while. There's a bit of history on there with when it was originally constructed in 1908, served as a warehouse, then small businesses. We ended up purchasing it in 2004, and it's been the Alliance Center ever since. We've gone through a number of different renovations, most recently in 2014, to where what you see today is this. Now today, what we have is a co-working and event space with 30 plus or minus tenant organizations that comprises around 300 individuals. We can house about 200 of those on any given day, but they also have satellite offices in other parts of the city and state. And my lights are going out on me. That's my energy efficiency side of my work. So motion sensors, I'll need to make sure I'm moving. And then as we are continuing on, there's also programmatic efforts that we try to focus on, including our Regenerative Recovery Coalition, Living Lab, which I've talked about a bit more, and our Best for Colorado program. Let's see. Then ultimately, what we try to do is demonstrating sustainability in action. And a lot of this conversation is a bit of that. And we try to mobilize change agents like yourself to make sure that we are making solutions for sustainability. Here's another couple pictures of our building for those that haven't been here. We're very happy about it. It's a great place to be, daytime or nighttime, as you can see here on the right. Slides aren't moving. Let's see. There we go. So the Living Laboratory. So what Living Laboratory serves as is to pilot innovative sustainability solutions using our building as an example. So in a less structured sense, what that amounts to is taking an effort that we feel is noteworthy for advancing sustainability and doing something here in the building that also has a research effort or a educational component to it. To give you a sense of what some of those ideas are, we focus on 3 areas. Operations, which we are a lead operations and maintenance platinum facility. That's the highest that you can earn. We focus heavily on indoor air quality. Today, we'll talk about waste reduction, and energy conservation has been a piece of our work since our founding. We also focus on people. It's not just the mortar and brick that's in the building, but also the people that are here that are important to us. We just recently earned our WELL Health Safety rating, which strives to ensure that the folks that are here are safe, specifically from COVID. It was a rating that was developed just a couple of months ago. We earned that. We're very happy about that. We're also exploring a few others that focus on air quality, human wellness, and other aspects. Last, we also focus on technology. These are a number of opportunities that have been grown in the last 18 months with advanced EV charging, controls related to our indoor quality, and a DC microgrid. I'm happy to get into any of those conversations after this, but do want to make sure that we're providing some focus on waste reduction today. So what is the problem we're here to talk about? Assumingly that everyone that's on the call today has a familiarity with what some problems are with waste, whether it's recycling efforts in Colorado and Denver being lower than the national average, general waste reduction and contribution to landfills as another. These are just some basic slides that EPA produced, and I'm sure we could talk about many more. So, waste in action here at the Alliance Center. We do quite a lot. We've been a leader, certainly in the Denver area, to try to make sure that we're doing our part. We have the traditional trash, recycling, and compost stations. It's nothing too challenging to try to manage those. But what we have been able to do is result in some very high diversion rates. On the last 5 years, Mariah and I and some others on our team, I think Allison participated at least once on doing a waste audit where we divert 85% of the waste from landfill. It's certainly a noteworthy number, but in addition to that, there's very little contamination. Then as we are looking further, not only are we doing that, but we're also working with a waste hauler that can accept atypical items. They accept block styrofoam, they accept coffee cups in their compost. They accept a number of different items. The coffee cups go in recycling or compost, depending on the material. Then they expect many other things, or they accept many other things. Then we do focus on signage. We found that our tenants work well to try to have signage that is more educational. This is a trash one. There isn't much educational in that. But as it relates to our mixed recycling, we try to say what is and what isn't acceptable in that stream. You'll see the block styrofoam and the coffee cups in those images. The imagery is an important aspect of what we try to provide for our tenants. Then we do the same thing for compostables. What's suitable in those streams? Education is obviously a big part of what we do. Then more to the meat of our conversation today, our hard to recycle station. This is a picture from, Danny can correct me, but probably 2014 or 2015 of the first hard to recycle station at the Alliance Center. This lived underneath Danny's desk. We had tenants come into our suite to contribute to it. Most of those items were the plastic bags or the foil-lined wrappers that you see in the picture that then moved towards a more dedicated station. That station had, I believe it was 9 streams at the time, where we were sending many of those to the team at TerraCycle for recycling and trying to divert as much as we possibly could. Now today, we have a dedicated station where it isn't just your blue recycling bins. This station is open to not only our tenants, but the broader community, where we will accept contributions to the station, and then our team will sort and ship those out to the respected company. We do, in addition to those items that we send to TerraCycle, we also collect e-waste items such as light bulbs, computers, batteries, etc., and send those to a local company, Blue Star. So over the last several years, we've diverted 300,000 items from the station. And realistically, I think we all need to give Danny a big applause and pat on the back, because if it wasn't for her efforts, we really wouldn't be there. So with that, I will turn things over to Allison and let her talk more about what she does at TerraCycle and what some of their efforts are.
Thank you so much, Chris. That was great. So yeah, as has been mentioned, my name is Allison. I am Project Manager Retail Marketing, North America for TerraCycle, which I tend to have jobs that have really long names because before I was Tenant and Visitor Services Coordinator at the Alliance Center. So I'm trying, there we go. So I wanted to start us off today with this nice photo. I took this photo in 2017 when I was working for the Alliance Center. And you can see Danny, and we have a whole crew, and we have a bunch of boxes, and we're taking it to the UPS store. And this is truly the recycling programs that TerraCycle does in action. Chris just shared the stat that I think there's 300,000 items diverted from the Alliance Center alone. And I have a stat that TerraCycle has collected 7 billion pieces of waste through its free recycling programs, which are entirely voluntary. So that's exciting that the Alliance Center has been part of this for so long. So fast forward to today. Now I am obviously not in Denver anymore. I work for TerraCycle. I started this year. And today I'm going to be talking to you about TerraCycle's history, where we started, and then I'll go through some of our different ways that we tackle waste. And I will focus a little bit on how the Alliance Center works, like what happens to the waste after it is dropped off at UPS. So where did it all begin? TerraCycle's founder, Tom Zaki, started TerraCycle in 2001 while he was a freshman at Princeton. And it actually started as a fertilizer company. They were making the vermicompost, so fertilizer made out of worm poop from garbage, and they were filling it in used water bottles. There's a little picture of it here that you can see. So that was how TerraCycle started. It was a fertilizer company, but it did have this mission to eliminate the idea of waste. And eventually Tom and his crew reevaluated that and said, I think we can do better. And so then they evolved into where TerraCycle is now. We make upcycled things. We make sculptures out of interesting recycled materials. We make playgrounds, and I'll go into this all a little bit later. Here's just some fun facts. I definitely don't expect you to read all of these. What I wanted to point out is that, yes, it's 20 years now, not 18. And actually in COVID times, we've grown over 100 jobs. So we've been growing through COVID, which I know a lot of companies aren't fortunate enough to say, but the good news is that recycling continued even when some of the other things shut down. But yeah, it's really exciting to be part of a company that is truly innovative and changing every day. It's growing, we're coming up with new things. It's a great work environment. And not only is it North America, it's global. Here on this map, you can see in blue where TerraCycle and Loop operates, and I'll talk about Loop a little bit later. But then there's also this thing called TerraCycle Foundation that operates, and some green where it's just TerraCycle. So we're growing in numbers, we're growing around the globe. It's happening. So here's a little preview of the ways that TerraCycle eliminates waste. And I'm going to go through all of these in more detail, but just to kick things off here, we make hard to recycle materials recyclable through our free recycling programs. I'm going to talk about storied materials and how we make new products from recycled materials by cleaning up waste. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about how we innovate and how we figure out what to do with the materials, as well as how we make it reusable with the program Loop. So to start, how do we make things recyclable? We call it the National Recycling Programs, or sometimes the Free Recycling Programs, which is a large part of what the Alliance Center does. And I'm sure that this audience is pretty familiar. Like Chris said, there's a big problem with the linear economy because we take something, we use it once, and then we throw it away where it pollutes the environment and fills everything up and is really horrible. So this first solution of making it recyclable, it just takes that new product and it diverts it from the landfill one step to make it into a new product. But the question is, what is recyclable? Chris covered this a little bit, where we have things that can go into our typical recycling bin. We all know that those are recyclable, but then why can't we put everything in our recycling bin through the city? And the answer is that it's an economic equation. What makes something practically recyclable is just if the material that comes out of the recycling process is more valuable than the cost of transporting it and the cost of processing it. And to give you some examples, here on this side, you can see things that are really commonly locally recyclable: aluminum, plastic bottles, paper. All of those things, when they go through the logistics of collecting and processing, they're valuable. And so it's worthwhile to the city or whoever's collecting it to go through this whole process. But then there's all sorts of things on this side of the equation, of this side of the Venn diagram, that we call hard to recycle or not locally recyclable or not practically recyclable. It's the things like beauty products, the cigarette butts, even dirty diapers can fall into this category. There's a whole bunch of things that are over here, and they're just too expensive to collect and process, and what comes out of them isn't valuable. So who's gonna pay to have that done? And unfortunately, we live in a world where we're not quite at the point of people paying for things like this out of the goodness of their hearts. So here's where TerraCycle comes in. And I know that there's like a big ROI thing on the screen, so it might look like a sales pitch, but I'm not pitching you, I'm just describing what's happening. So basically, TerraCycle says to brands and companies that are producing this packaging that is not recyclable, we say, okay, sure, there's gonna be this really high collection cost, there's going to be this processing cost. You're going to get some value out of it, but you should sponsor or invest in this process, because what's going to happen is that you're going to see a return on your investment down the line or immediately. And so that's why brands really love working with TerraCycle, because they're able to recycle their hard to recycle materials. And yes, sometimes they're doing it out of the goodness of their hearts. They get good feelings out of it, but they actually do see real return on investment. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about one aspect of the ROI, because that's the team that I work on. You'll notice in my title, it says retail marketing or shopper marketing, depending on where you look. So I work on the retail team, and shopper marketing is where I focus. So for those of you, maybe somebody knows what shopper marketing is, but I didn't know what it was before I started at TerraCycle. Essentially, it is a brand marketing itself to you in a retail environment. So anytime you're in a grocery store, the things that you see or the things that pop out to you or catch your eye, they're not there by accident by any means. The brands are really working hard to get spots in retail stores, get extra displays on the ends of aisles, things like that. And the retailer is willing to give them those spaces if they have an interesting story. So I think an example will be helpful at this point. Colgate is a brand partner of TerraCycle. They operate an oral care national recycling program, which means that they collect for the whole category. So I'm not sure if the Alliance Center has this one or not in the hard to recycle station. I see Chris shake his head no. So anyway, so people can participate in the Colgate program, and you ship your toothbrushes, your toothpaste, anything to Colgate, and we recycle it. But because they do that, we help them activate in a retail store. So this is a display that we helped Colgate set up. You can see that there's this call to action here that says, recycle for a chance to help your state win a playground for a children's hospital. So right off the bat, Colgate is happy because they have this display in stores, which means that it's just going to catch people's eye. They're more likely to pick up a toothbrush from this display. But also what this display is doing for TerraCycle and for the planet is that if that call to action just said, hey, fun fact, did you know that you can recycle your toothbrushes through TerraCycle? maybe I would participate in that program because I really care about recycling, or maybe some of you on this call would participate in that. But most shoppers don't really care about recycling. But what a lot of shoppers do care about is helping children who want to play on a playground, especially if it's near a children's hospital. So basically what this call to action has done is it's taken somebody who might not have cared about recycling and helped them care a little bit. Because how you help your state win a playground is that you basically vote for your state by sending in your toothbrush when you're done using it. So all of a sudden now people are really excited to send in their toothbrushes and oral care waste because they're going to help it out. And here is the result. So we take the materials that we collected from the Colgate program and we work with our vendors and we turned it into a playground. So the kids are happy, it's made out of recycled materials, and the whole system is complete. I do also want to share a different example of what my team works on. So, and this is a little bit more of a local example. Next time you're at Breckenridge or Beaver Creek or Keystone or Vail, see if you can find these Adirondack chairs and picnic tables that have this plaque on it, because that was actually brought to you by a partnership between PepsiCo and Vail Resorts, where they collected chip wrappers and then transformed the waste into this stuff. And also that Mountain Dew Terrain Park feature is in Breckenridge, and it's made out of recycled TerraCycle materials. So keep your eyes out for those. Okay, next I'm going to zoom a little bit more on the Alliance Center and how does TerraCycle actually collect and transform this waste into these cool things. The first step is to register, and I believe the Alliance Center has been a registered user with TerraCycle since 2014. Maybe correct me if I'm wrong. I'm seeing yes, great. And just a little shout out here, I think that the Alliance Center also uses the zero waste boxes, which is a little bit different model. For the zero waste boxes, the brands aren't sponsoring the collection like the other programs are, but still collecting waste. So then community members, like Chris was saying, drop off their waste. The Alliance Center team members send it off to TerraCycle, like I showed you in the beginning, the boxes to UPS. I'm going to get into what happens to it next on the next slide, but there's this extra bonus for people who do this. You earn points, and Danny would be able to answer this, but you can do all sorts of cool things with the points that you earn by recycling through TerraCycle. You can give it as a charitable donation, or I think you can have other incentives. So a little bonus for you there. Once TerraCycle receives it, we check it in at a material recovery facility, or in the business, a MRF for short, which I think is a really adorable little name for a material recovery facility. We check it in and that just ties it back that it came from the Alliance Center. Then next, what happens at the MRF, step 2, is to aggregate it. So everything that we receive at the MRF, we sort it out and make sure that the plastics are with the plastics, the metals are with the metals, and we aggregate them until they build up a big enough bale, like you can see here. Then we send it over to a processor. The processor collects the specific type of material, and depending on what it is, it goes through a different process. But for plastics, for example, it is washed and then it is broken down into a smaller component. And most of the time we create these pellets out of it. And those pellets can then be sent to a manufacturer to be made into a new product. So the key here is really that we work with a network of MRFs and a network of vendors and processors, and they're all third-party groups. TerraCycle doesn't own any of those, but it's a really important part of our supply chain. So I think the next part I wanted to cover was how we innovate with waste, and give a huge shout out to our research and development team. This is Dr. Ernell Simpson. He's kind of a TerraCycle superstar here, because he's the one that works in the lab to actually figure out how do we recycle a dirty diaper? How do we recycle a cigarette butt or a soft plastic? So we have a whole R&D team that figures out the best ways to do this. And then how it works is once we come up with the best practices, we're able to train those third-party partners at the MRFs and the processors. Sometimes it requires them getting new equipment, but we basically transfer the process to them so that they can do it on a larger scale. And once it goes through that, another thing our R&D team does is work with the manufacturers to actually make the products into something exciting. So just some examples that you've already seen here, but the upcycling, like the nice little jacket that he's wearing, or expo markers, playgrounds, like we really can make anything. I have a lot of confidence in our team there with design. Okay, so that was kind of the meat of what I wanted to talk to you about, because that's what I spend the most of my time thinking about. But to complete the loop here, the storied materials division of TerraCycle is what cleans up waste and makes it from recycled materials. And what I mean by storied materials, so again, just here's our little diagram again. So before we were talking about just making a new product out of recycled materials, now we're talking about incorporating recycled materials into the product itself. And what makes it a storied material is that we're not just taking any old recycled material we can find. We're actually cleaning up something like a beach and then turning that material into a new product. I think this picture here is with a partnership with P&G, and I think they're cleaning up in Panama. So a very, very fun event. And then it gets turned into something like these herbal essences bottles, where it's not only are they recyclable in your curbside recycling, not only are they made of recycled materials, but they're made of this really special recycled material that used to be sitting on a beach somewhere. And I have a feeling that some of you might be excited to hear about this, because Loop is making waves in the waste world. So Loop is the final step of this circular economy diagram, where we're actually reusing the same exact thing over and over and over again, and we're just washing it. And it's actually not a new concept at all. Reusability came from the milk ban, really, when you used to get milk delivered to your door in a nice durable glass container. You drink it, return it, they'd wash it, and then give it back to you the next time. And so in this scenario, the company saw their material as an asset. But then we switched gears and we got obsessed with disposability, and people just wanted to have something, throw it away, never think about it again. And that's when the material packaging itself turned into a cost to the company instead of an asset. And this is a big problem because our world is filling up with trash, and it's devastating. So what Loop does is that it's a platform for reuse. And what that means is that Loop is trying to make reusable goods feel like disposable goods, in that you have it, you're using it, and then you get rid of it somewhere and it's dealt with somewhere else. So I do have a few examples to share with you. So here is Haagen-Dazs. Haagen-Dazs designed this durable, reusable, insulated container. So you can pick it up at the store and then eat your ice cream, and then you'll return it. This is also happening with like beauty products and whatnot, but it's actually live in stores in France at the partner Carrefour. So you can see, you go up to this kiosk, you grab your product, you do pay a deposit on the container, and then you get a 100% refund on that deposit when you return it back at that same kiosk. So it feels a little bit like disposability because you don't have to wash it. It goes to a washing facility somewhere else, and then you can just pick up your next product while you're there in the store. And this is a prototype design for doing a similar model at a restaurant instead of at a retail store. I don't think that this Burger King one is live yet, but it's in the works. And there is also a McDonald's pilot that is live in the UK. So how this works, it's the same story. Instead of ordering your burger or your drink in a disposable thing, you're able to pay a little bit extra to get it in a reusable thing, and then you bring it back to the counter when you're done. Easy peasy. So that was, I know I flew through that, but just to bring it back, here are all the ways that TerraCycle is eliminating the idea of waste. And I didn't even cover all of the different lines of business that TerraCycle has. There's the foundation doing really good work cleaning up waste. There's talks about regulated waste, which is dealing with hazardous waste. So there's a lot to know about TerraCycle, and I will say that feel free to email me or anything later with any questions. But thank you so much for your time. I think I'm passing it back off to Chris now.
Yeah, thank you, Allison. I do want to kind of cover what the Alliance Center is doing today, but more importantly, what we see is kind of in the future. And Allison talked about that circular economy. And this is a graphic that we produced for what we do today. And then I can get a bit more into what we see as offers down the road. Do see a ton of questions coming through. Please keep sending those in, and here in just a few minutes, both Allison and I can try to address those. I think Allison, you're up for most of them from what I saw when you were chatting. But this is our graphic. You can see us here. Ultimately, we are a collection facility. We will work with any consumer, whether it's a retailer or a tenant in the building, a neighbor here in the Denver area. We don't do anything for folks outside of the immediate metro area, but it's something that we can certainly collaborate with other groups on our model, and another group try to replicate that in another state or another city. It's something that we've done in a couple of areas here in Denver, but not certain where those conversations went to. What we try to do is be that collection site to avoid things going to the landfill or things being recycled in a way that isn't appropriate. Then as we are able to recycle things, we will try to just do regular recycling. We will also send them over to TerraCycle for reuse, refurbish, or potentially produce more raw materials. TerraCycle has quite a bit of this diagram here where they're able to support the efforts that we are trying to do to reduce waste going into the landfills here in Colorado. And I need to come on slides. There we go. So what we are doing, some other things that we see is the future. Our hard to recycle station is obviously a big impact, and we see new streams as one of those opportunities, whether it's looking at something like yard signs or another product that isn't suitable to be recycled in your traditional recycling facility, but TerraCycle or another vendor has an opportunity to recycle it. That is certainly something that we see as an opportunity. We also are considering discontinuing some of our existing streams because they've become so popular in other locations. Where if you walk into your grocery store, Target has them, King Soopers, Walmart, Whole Foods have multiple recycling options that when we started our station didn't exist. Now with such a prevalence in a local market, we would like to abandon, and I think that's maybe a strong word, but discontinue some of our existing streams and focus on others that there isn't an opportunity to recycle. That's kind of our growth model. We're always looking for volunteer opportunities. It takes our staff. Allison actually helped us sort for many years. We've done a sort of our hard to recycle station basically weekly since 2018. And it does take a bit of staff time to do that. So for those that are on the call virtually or here in the building, love to have you volunteer and help us contribute to that effort. We're also trying to educate. Danny is a true advisor. She earned her credentials a couple of years ago and is very familiar with the true certification, and that's for facilities to identify how well they do in terms of their waste reductions. We as an organization are considering that certification. We had an intern this past summer that focused on True, was trying to learn more about our tenants' knowledge and see where they can grow in their efforts. We also have an extensive number of partnerships. Blue Star and TerraCycle are one of those. We also have our coffee vendor here in the building that has 100% compostable materials coming from their facility. We also work with local companies like Sustainability, the Happy Beetle, and Redwell. So there's a lot of opportunities out there to really grow the waste efforts of our building, of TerraCycle, and broader community. So we're hoping that this presentation has been able to give you a sense of what we do and what matters on our end, so that you can take it to either your community or bring it to us and we can do something with it. So I will stop there on prepared remarks and open it up to some questions and see where we can go from there.
And I think since we're a pretty small group, I can just go through the chat and respond if that works. Okay. So I see, let me make sure I'm not missing any up here. Okay, and stop me if I'm missing a question, but I'm going to start with Catherine's question. What materials has the highest minimum processing quantity? That would be a great question for our operations team. And again, like I'm happy to look into this for you, but I don't know as a member of the retail team. And follow up to this question, which materials take the longest to reach its minimum processing quantity and for what reasons? And kind of similar story, I don't have the specifics to this question, but what I've experienced in my role is that it kind of is what you would think. The materials that are really small and maybe a newer program take a long time to reach that minimum quantity. So for example, one of our programs that is newer is Babybel in Canada. They have their national recycling program. And one of the things they're collecting is the nets. And because they're a newer program, like it takes a while to like build your network of people recycling and sending products in. And also the nets are so small for each thing you buy from a Babybel. You guys know what I'm talking about, those like little cheeses. So it's kind of, for what the reasons that it would take a long time to fill up is just like a low participation or just a small thing. And yeah, follow up with me and I'm happy to dig into that more with my ops team who would have the answers. Danny says recycling deposits are the norm in Iowa, which like, go Iowa. Sorry, I don't know how to say your name, Montse. Sorry if I mispronounced that. Asked, do you have returning stations here in Colorado? And the answer is no. I will say keep your eyes out for those loop stations in retail stores. I don't have dates exactly, but it is coming to the United States and it is at a retailer that I know is in Colorado. So keep your eyes peeled for that.
Hey, Allison, a similar one was where's there the closest MRF here in Colorado? One of your MRFs.
Did I miss that one? I don't.
It was up above. That's
okay,
fine.
Thank you for catching that. Again, we don't share exactly where our MRFs are. At least I'm not privy to that information. It's part of this third-party network. And again, like maybe I do have that information. I just don't know today. And so thank you for your patience with me here. I know that the one closest to me so TerraCycle is actually based out of Trenton, New Jersey, which is far from New York City. But there is one in New Jersey sort of nearby. Okay. And stop me if you want to come off mute and ask a follow-up question as well. Catherine again asks, have your efforts experienced pushback from industries that profit off of disposability, like packaging corporations, trash, landfill, or other? Let me answer those one at a time. So packaging corporations, I'm not sure if you have a specific one you want to ask about, but I would argue that PepsiCo is a packaging corporation, and they're actually the type of company that is most excited to work with TerraCycle because people are looking to them and asking them questions like, what are you doing with your waste? And they're looking to TerraCycle to be like, we work with TerraCycle. So packaging corporations seem like they're very on board because they're looking for solutions and TerraCycle can help them get there. Trash and landfill industries. I haven't heard of a trash or a landfill business saying TerraCycle, like you're taking my trash, why are you doing this? And I am not sure. It's a really great question. I'm not familiar with any conflict there. We don't work directly with them because we're diverting stuff out of the trash or landfill, but a really great question that again, I can follow up in more detail if I have some time to research it for you. Laura asks, how expensive is TerraCycle collection at the Alliance Center? How do you cover these costs? So I'll answer the first part of that, and I'm sorry, I should have said this more explicitly. Those national recycling programs, it's free for the user because the brand is paying for all of the shipping and all of the processing. So I think the Alliance Center is only responsible for finding the box to put the stuff in. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right, Allison. And so, well, I guess there's one other fee. We have to pay for UPS to come and pick it up at the building, which is $6 a trip. So there's very minimal cost in terms of us trying to ship out the streams that are in our hard to recycle station. If we're looking at some of the zero waste boxes, those do have a flat fee per box. And I want to say those are, depending on the box size, anywhere between $50 and $300, depending on the size and the material that's being recycled. So for us here, it's a very minimal cost. How we cover that is historically has been through sponsors that sponsor the station itself. We are moving towards a model where we'll kindly request. It isn't absolutely necessary, but we kindly request for a financial contribution when someone drops off something flat rate like a $5 or something along those lines. If there is a high level of e-waste, which is a out-of-pocket expense, then we try to evaluate that based on the quantity of materials.
And I'll just add something there too that I think sometimes people don't realize is several of the streams do require like staff time to physically sort so that we can put them in the right, ship them off to the right place for TerraCycle. So like the plastic bag stream, and I think that's kind of the main one, but like that does take our staff time to like be experts in how the different plastics feel. So just wanted to share that too.
And I guess you invested in the infrastructure. Like it used to be just the bins or the one bin by Danny's desk, and now it's a whole beautiful setup. So that's, I think, what's really inspiring about these voluntary programs is that the Alliance Center is doing it because it's the right thing to do. Like it does require a little bit of funding and staff time. And TerraCycle wouldn't work without people like you. So thank you. There's some questions about compost. I don't know who wants to field those.
Yeah, I can try on Catherine about cups, forks, etc. I do know that those items do go to a traditional composting facility. It is a commercial grade facility, as opposed to those that are in the in your side yard where it's a drum that you spin. And those are combined with other food products or compostable materials that, based on my understanding, allows for fruits and vegetables to be grown, but I don't know definitively. And then from Christy, found the nitrogen part of the compost. Okay, all right, sounds like Christy may have helped answer that question and I didn't get to her response.
I'm glad we have a master composter here with us today. Thank you.
I didn't even know that that was an opportunity to become a master certified composter. So wonderful. Any other questions from the group? If you want to, please feel free to come off mute and ask away or send it in the chat.
Yeah, this is Todd. I have a question. I appreciate that TerraCycle is taking this on. Obviously, we've come a long way from standard recycling and curbside recycling. It sounds like the term hard to recycle is almost going away, hopefully, in that it seems like a lot of things will eventually be recycled. So I guess my question is, what is the obstacle from curbside recycling being able to eventually take this on to make it easier for people to just truly have, a one-stop shop to drop all these things off?
Yeah, I can try that one. I think that the hardest piece is the infrastructure, not only the transportation of recyclables that need to be recycled in a specific manner, but also the facilities to sort those items. I know that there's practices in place and recycling facilities which can prioritize the papers, the metals, the glass, and there's even glass recyclers that you can put whole bottles into that help make sure that glass is recycled in its entirety. So it probably is the facility cost is probably the hardest aspect of that, and then trying to ensure that there's enough product to justify a dedicated system to sort those materials.
And what I'll add is that I think it can also come down to that business equation. Like Chris was saying, the cost of getting any new infrastructure in place that would be required to collect everything in one bin would be expensive. And then also the material that comes out of it might not be worth anything. So then the question is, who's going to pay for that? So if some government or if someone wants to pay for that, I think we could make it happen. I'm optimistic about that, but I don't know who would pay for it at this point.
Yeah, and the other thing that I just remembered is there's a ballot initiative going on right now for pay as you throw that's here in Denver, the city and county of Denver. And I know that there is some concern about contamination of the pay as you throw systems, where you have to pay a certain amount if you contribute something to landfill. So what is being added to the recycling bin instead of the landfill to try to reduce costs? And if there's concern about contamination under the existing recyclable items, adding in more is certainly going to make that more challenging. So somebody, I believe at the city of Denver is likely working on that, but trying to get there is definitely a goal that we all see to increase our diversion rates for recycling, compost, and these hard to recycle and hopefully soon to be not hard to recycle items.
A question that I have, since we talked about Denver, I'm curious, first of all, what other collection sites for TerraCycle that may already exist in Colorado? We have the Alliance Center, which seems like a really good fit. Are there other businesses that have collections? What about municipalities? What kind of partnership are in place here in the state?
So let me, the TerraCycle website is a good resource for this. Unfortunately, right now, there doesn't exist like one map that you can go to see all of your different options for TerraCycle locations. So what I would recommend is picking the waste stream that you're interested in. So for example, if I was talking about Colgate before, if you're trying to figure out how you can recycle your toothbrush, you would go to TerraCycle's website and then find the list of free recycling programs and go to that waste stream, so Colgate. And then within that program, there will be a map if there are public locations of where you can take that particular thing. And then there will also be an option to sign up to participate. So you, just like the Alliance Center, could create an account and just send stuff back in boxes or whatever you have, and it would be all free for you. So you could kind of like take it upon yourself to make it happen, or you can poke around to try to find those public locations on the map for the waste stream.
Thanks. I'm going to take your answer and twist it a little bit, because I was asking from the point of view of a collection entity. For example, I am on the board for Louisville Sustainability Advisory Board. And if there is a municipality that is interested in being that centralized location for a TerraCycle location, that's the parameters that I was coming from. What other examples are there? Are there municipalities that have attempted to do this, or what other role models or case studies might there be for an entity, and especially a municipality, to be a collection site?
At TerraCycle, we call them public locations, and I don't have a good case study off the top of my head, but I know that there are a lot of like location-based or like bigger like organizations, like you were saying, that try to create a whole station with a bunch of different waste streams. Follow up with me, and I'm so sorry, but I can try to look something up. Chris, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I mean, the where I would maybe do some research, and I'm unfamiliar with a municipality that's done anything, where I would potentially research are the Targets, the King Supers, the Whole Foods that have added hard to recycle streams within their front entrances. They'll recycle their plastic bags. Some of them will do the Amazon mailers, the bubble wrap mailers from Amazon. There may be some sort of case studies at that level where it is a larger organization than a single building here like the Alliance. Hopefully those would help. But if there's an opportunity for us to provide as a resource for a case study, it's something that we would always be interested in participating in if there's value to partner together.
And thank you for asking, because I think that it's bigger places like municipalities that get on board and start showing how we can collect all this material that will set the example. I did drop a link in that I quickly found and remembered that we definitely partner with municipalities for cigarette butt recycling, but I think that partnership can be expanded to be a broader public collection.
Thanks.
Cool. Well, since we are just about at time, I think we'll go ahead and wrap up. So thank you so much to everyone for joining us today. And thank you especially to Chris and Allison for sharing your passion and your knowledge with us. It's such an important topic, and we really appreciate you being here and sharing this time together. We'll be sending out the recording to everyone. So if there's anything you'd like to review, feel free to take a look at that. And then feel free to get in touch with Chris or Allison if you have any questions or follow-up. It sounds like there's some great potential partnerships here. If you could also take a second to respond to the survey link in the chat, that will help us continue to offer high quality events in the future. And then keep an eye out for our upcoming webinars and events that we're hosting. We'll link.